and family therapist. Social worker.
What's the R mean?
R means that I have privileges to diagnose from the DSM, as do psychiatrists, but I don't believe in the DSM, so that would be another story. I don't believe in mental health diagnoses. I believe that pain and depression are situationally caused.
Oh.
So we'll be getting into that. But don't let any of your exes tell you you're disturbed. You could just say, well, if I am, I wasn't until I met you. So, am I beginning?
You are up and ready,
Okay.
and you're rocking and rolling,
All right.
hopefully.
Can everybody see me? It seems strange sitting down in front of a computer instead of a podium, but anyway, my name is Linda, and I am an adult child survivor of parental alienation syndrome. I reconnected with my father when I was 18 years old, so there is hope out there. So I don't know if anybody wants to ask questions about that at some point. I do have a list of questions from the PowerPoint and from what I heard everybody saying on their introductions is problems with the therapist. So I'm here to tell you about problems with the therapist from both sides of the chair. First thing is that individual therapy is a total waste of time. It's a waste of time for adults, and it's a waste of time for children. So let's go into children. Okay. What is a brainwashed child going to tell a therapist? Okay? So here you go. The therapist, and you know, most therapists do go into the business because they have a rescue fantasy. They want to help and save children. So now they hear the alienating parent tell these horrific stories about the other parent, and then it's confirmed by the brainwashed child. So now the therapist is going to write reports to the GAL, terrified of the other parent, will threaten suicide. I got a referral from a colleague of mine who does sex abuse evaluations, and many of you, especially the men, probably have had sex abuse allegations lodged at you at some point. So my colleague ruled out that this 9-year-old had been sexually abused by her father and referred the case to me for unification therapy. The mother's attorney called me up because the mother was disputing that reunification therapy involves the father. So the mother's attorney said, I need to tell my daughter that. The father's attorney confirmed it was family therapy and reunification therapy, and then said to me, but you know, this child has threatened to kill herself and run away from home if she is forced to see her father in therapy. And I said to the attorney, which one is she going to do first? So I then asked the lawyer, he didn't answer, didn't appreciate the joke. So I said to the lawyer, how old is this child? Now, I knew from my colleague how old the child was. This idiot lawyer says to me, I believe the child is somewhere between 7 and 12 years old. So that is a big gap in child development at that age. It's not like you're in your 30s dating someone who's, 40. I just said, well, I happen to know the child's 9 years old. Where is she going to run? So these are the kinds of things that happen that professionals get co-opted. I am sure he believes this child is terrified of the father. The question is, and you're going to get this all the time, well, the child is terrified of the other parent. Well, what is the solution? To sever the relationship? In what other situation does somebody recommend breaking off? Kids are brought into therapy all the time. He can't get along with peers. Help him resolve the problem with peers. Don't break off the relationship with the friend. Who goes to the peace table and only have one side? But yet we think in this business that a child should be protected from one of only two people in that child's entire life that's going to love that child unconditionally. Only two of the most significant relationships in a child's life. And no, parent-child relationship is even more important than the spousal relationship because they break up more than 50%. But a child and a parent will never stop loving each other. So when anyone says the solution to hate for a parent is to break off that relationship, my response is, where else do we recommend that that's the solution? Severing the relationship rather than amelioration? That's ridiculous. All right, so what do I do in these cases? If you consider what alienation is, it's the co-option of a child by one parent to the rejection and degradation of the other parent. Now, even though Richard Gardner in 1985 was first to have labeled this dynamic, and this is very important information because everybody says, oh, it doesn't really exist. That's baloney, okay? Richard Gardner was the first to have labeled this family dynamic parental alienation syndrome. He was not the first to observe it. The first to observe it were the child psychiatrists in the 1950s who later founded the family therapy movement. And by the way, all this information is on my free website where, thanks to Joni's efforts, all that I'm talking about and much more is documented there. Everything can be downloaded for free. So I think it's on my card that I passed around.
And I will make the PowerPoint available. The video will be YouTubed. Yeah. It'll be in the minutes that I send out to everybody. So as long as we get, if you want to make an announcement, everybody just sends us an email to Connecticut.
Pinky Patsy at pat-intervention.com.
So then we'll send out any minutes or any resources.
Okay, so the PAS child is a victim of the process called triangulation. That's what the child psychiatrist labeled it in the 1950s. And by the way, it was so destructive to children that they observed it on the psych ward. The kids were psychotic. That's what happens to these children. So if you think of a triangle, 3 people involved in a triangle, how can you possibly treat only one side, the child, and not deal with the parent who's co-opting them and the other parent? So for that reason and many other reasons, individual therapy is a waste. You should always ask for a family therapist. And not all therapists have that training. Unfortunately, family therapists make up less than 10% of all mental health professionals. It's really a tragedy. As long as children are raised in families, we need more family therapists. But you should try to make sure that you get a licensed marriage and family therapist, somebody who has the initials LMFT after their name. Even if they haven't heard of PAS, they have heard of triangulation. I had not heard of PAS until a few years ago, but I knew what triangulation was. So for that reason, you can't counteract, as a therapist who is nonetheless a stranger. We have no magic. We don't wave a magic wand and turn children around. There is no way that we are going to deprogram a child. We don't have all the family history that the alienated parent had. And the therapist is going to get the curveballs from the child. My father did this. My mother did that. The therapist cannot be a PhD historian on every family. The alienated parent must be in that room with the child to correct any misinformation about that parent. And finally, if you can get the alienating parent to participate, it's not working?
Oh, it's working. The battery's coming right.
Oh. If you can get the alienating parent to participate, these kids will flip like a light switch. Now, alienating parents do not walk into the office of a therapist and say, well, you know what the problem is? I alienated my child from the other parent, and woe is me, and I'm a terrible parent. Not going to happen. The only time I really get the alienating parent to participate is when they are afraid of judicial reprisals. So I always try to work with the lawyer for the child or the GAL and educate them about what alienation is and win them over, because they can then go to the judge and have the judge threaten the alienating parent with reprisals, loss of custody, fines, loss of custody is the final resource. And I'm not opposed to that if they don't rescind their alienating behaviors, because I think it's child abuse. But loss of time is a great penalty. Okay, you didn't get your kid to therapy, so now the child will stay with the other parent for a week. Let that parent bring the child to therapy, and we'll keep doing this. So for all those reasons, individual therapy.
Well, it's now, because I had to stop it because it's battery, and we don't know if this is going to work. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to do a...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is there significant, does it necessarily need to be an LMS thesis as a social worker, you think? Or
Social work, nobody has the basic training of family dynamics other than the LMFT.
so
Right. Now, I did start out as a social worker, and I had the option of going towards family therapy, which is how I got my basic training. But even social workers have the option of going towards individual therapy, so there's no guarantee. Also, if you check your state licenses for therapists, you will not find the word family mentioned in any title, any license, except LMFT and to some degree social worker. So even a psychologist, a psychologist has a doctorate, no, they're not an expert. Only the family therapist is an expert on family dynamics, and as long as this is a family problem, you have to make the case to your attorney, to make the case to the judge. We have to have a family therapist. They're the only one trained in family dynamics. And go in with the piece of paper with, Your Honor, here it is. Where is the word family in the degree of psychology? It's not there. Even psychiatrists don't have that training. I trained psychiatrists, child psychiatrists. So that's the biggest failure. Do you always get results? No. But I'll tell you, somebody I was helping in Colorado just sent me a court order. Now, I was trained by, there are many schools of family therapy, and it doesn't matter which one you're trained in. They're all successful. But I was trained by Salvador Minuchin. He developed a school called Structural Family Therapy. He's a world-renowned child psychiatrist. It's no better than any other school of family therapy, but it fits my style and my makeup, my emotional makeup. So that's the one I adopted. But I was coaching somebody in Colorado, an alienated father, and I educated him about the need for family therapy. He not only got a court order that mandated that the mother bring the child to a family therapist for reunification. The judge ordered the caveat, and if you can find one who practices in the Minuchin model. I love that court order. I blocked out the names of the people, and I emailed it to my mentor, Dr. Minuchin, so that he could have that excitement of seeing, that was really exciting. That was really exciting. So, and I might add that the mother was ordered to pay the father's legal fees on that case because she had deliberately sabotaged the therapy and the relationship. So that's something else that can happen. Anyone have any questions about therapy?
The first thing is, I wrote this down. Do I tell the other parent about this program where I do it, keep my mouth shut, not saying anything?
What program?
Well, in program, in other words, no, just do I say anything about the TSA?
No.
No, don't say anything.
No. First of all, the judges don't like that word. I have two CVs. One when I'm hired to testify that alienation is present on a case that says PAS expert, and then I have another resume when I'm trying to get assigned for family reunification that says family therapist expert. And you have to know, if the other side sees the word alienation, forget it. You know,
Don't say that.
no.
She has a therapist that I have a letter here that is really, I feel, working, doing the alienation for her. Yes, so I wouldn't.
If you want to educate the therapist about alienation, drop the word syndrome, because that is very controversial. But what I would say is, look, these are observable behaviors. We know when the parent is withholding medical information. We know when the parent's sending back presents. We know when the parent is encouraging a child to say, I hate you. I mean, this is anti-instinctual to hate a parent. Describe the behaviors for the therapist. You could say, my ex is really trying to sabotage or sever my relationship with my child. It doesn't, I don't care what you call it. Call it crappy parenting, for all I care. That's what I'll say in the court. I'm not wedded to a label. Call it crappy parenting, for all I care, because that's what it is, Your Honor.
What does the judge say when a response is they don't want to do that? Do they actually care why?
My response, I'm always asked that question, and why we think we should empower children is beyond me. And you know what my answer to that is? Children don't make a decision about a relationship with a parent for the same reason that they're not allowed to sit on a jury until they're 18. Very simple. They don't have the cognitive development yet. And also on my website, why children shouldn't drive the visitation bus. You'll see that on there. And there are a couple of other articles on there that address that. Children, our thinking, and I know dolphins think too, and maybe they're saner than we are, but in any case, human thinking doesn't begin to think abstractly until about the age of 13. That's just the beginning of the process. So my argument always is, a child can no more engage in a discussion about what's in their best interest, which is what decisions are supposed to be made on, than until they're at least 18. And they can't theorize what it is like to have a parent eradicated from their lives. So if they don't have the intellectual facility to think about, to come up with an accurate answer, why are we empowering them to make that decision? Would you let them decide not to go to school? Would you let them decline medical care? Do you let them decide what to eat for their 3 meals a day? There are certain areas that are reserved for adults. And one of them is a relationship with another parent because we deem that relationship so important. So that's my answer to why they shouldn't decide on visitation. And that article you can get easily downloaded from the website. In fact, I put up an amicus brief. Did we do one on visitation? No, we did one on 50-50 physical custody. We did one on the PAS's child abuse. And we did wide family therapy. So I wrote an amicus brief up. What is an amicus brief? Yeah. Yeah, you can do what? An amicus brief is a friend of the court report from an expert. Okay? In support, it cannot be submitted by itself. It can't be cross-examined. It can be submitted in support of your own petition for redress of your parental rights. Why you're asking for physical custody, for visitation. Why 50-50 shared parenting is in the best interest of the child. Why engaging in alienation is child abuse. If you fill that in and it's written up so you can fill in your own identifying information and send it to me, please, with a self-addressed stamped envelope with enough return postage, I will sign it and have it notarized and send it back to you in support of any of your petitions. But it can't be submitted in and of itself. It has to support something you're asking for redress of your parental rights. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it depends on the judge. To me, these judges don't go by the law, which is the subject of my next book. Well, by the way, I don't know, you could pass this around. This is the book I wrote on parental alienation. I wrote about 56 children from 32 families from my practice about how what they said, everything, I hate you if I can't tell you why. There are examples in there, plus treatment summaries and recommendations to the judicial system, the mental health system, and child protective services. I could have quadrupled the number of kids, but the publisher said the book would be too long. I mean, this just happens in 80% of all divorces to some degree.
I'm going to have you start moving on because we only have room for so long.
Okay, let me move on.
I already moved you to question 2.
Is there specific though on the therapy if it's with like reuniting therapy? Some people, they're forced to get that reuniting therapy, but what are the results?
We don't have good research because so few people do it. However, I can tell you about half of the children in my book did reconnect with their alienated parent to some degree, and a lot to a major degree. And I'm in touch with 31 of the 32 alienated parents, and I get updates all the time that surprise me. 3 years later, their kids contacted them and they reconnected. So this is an area that needs to be addressed, that we need more research on.
The initials for a therapist, can you tell me what MA?
LMFT, Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist.
I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
MA, IPC, MCC.
MA would be Masters.
Masters of something. It doesn't mean anything.
And Masters, and what's the last part? I mean the second part.
IPC and MCC.
I don't know. Every state has different initials. I can tell you that if they don't have LMFT after their name, they're probably not a family therapist.
What I would say to you to do
ask them what
is go online and put that stuff in, and it should tell you what that is.
Especially with the
and
state.
Don't be afraid to ask this stuff. What they call it, there's a name for it, the alphabet. What does your alphabet mean, or something like that?
Well, I don't know what that is. Ask them where they were trained in family therapy. Where did they get their training in family therapy? Okay, next question. What is the next question? All right. There's
a question about people on the video.
Oh, okay. Do you feel there is a reasonable
amount of bad mouthing during a divorce that should not result in alienation?
Okay, alienation is a progressive syndrome, okay? And very often it does start out on an unconscious level. People are, this is the license, divorce is the license to go to war. And kids often do become the ammunition. Sometimes parents are just so frustrated with their partner, they just say anything with not the intention to alienate. When you say anything negative about a kid's parent, to the kid about another parent, it's destructive. It may not be alienation, but very often it progresses, and you want to stop, you want to nip it in the bud. You wouldn't get on an airplane where the CEO tolerates a 1% crash rate. So why would you, tolerate even 1% of bad-mouthing of the other parent? We think very concretely, I'm half my mother and half my father. If one parent is put down to the child, if they learn to hate a parent, they're going to hate themselves. And people who hate themselves behave very badly. And that's why all these kids are really screwed up. So, next question. Is the camera on?
Yes. Okay. Question 3. Do you feel an older teen could be influenced into alienating your younger siblings from a parent?
Absolutely. Older siblings do that. And you have to be careful, and you have to watch it. And it's, it's at the behest of the alienating parent. I mean, they make a hatchet person out of their older sibling, which is really abuse of that child in different ways. And that older child very often functions like the partner of the alienating parent. It's called enmeshment, and they really look like a couple in every way, except there may not be a sexual relationship. So, stop the alienation. Get into therapy. Go to court. Alienators will not self-perform.
They can't.
Well, they can with the right incentive.
Yes, there's an incentive.
No, medicine won't do it. They're a character disorder. There's no treatment for it. They only fear. How do you work with a narcissist? You make sure that you're depriving their reprisals to deny them what they want. You cannot have your child if you engage in alienation. Case closed. Yes, absolutely.
It's something that both of us talk about called penalties that need to be included in court orders.
Absolutely.
Question 4. Do you often see alienators supported by their family?
We're talking about family of origin or extended family. Absolutely. They give emotional support. They give, I can't tell you how many give financial support. And, you know, so the child now loses relationships with an awful lot of people. So because they also alienate the extended family of the targeted parent. So, yes, unfortunately, my mentor, Dr. Mnuchin, had an expression which we won't say outside this room, and he never said outside the classroom. He said, families are killers. Are you reading the next one?
Yes, I'm going to read it.
Do their families police them, or are they just...
Oh, I believe these alienators are so convincing they'll pass a lie detector test.
So
they really believe.
Well, yeah, they do. It's their reality. It's the same thing. My father-in-law, he has the greatest relationship. He was an awesome father-in-law, and he was great. Boom, turned on a dime, because even through when we were married, I could see how my ex-husband played, even his father, played his mother, played his sister. These are adults. They're not adults.
And you want to know what's really sad to the targeted parent? Their parents, the only way they may have a relationship with their grandchildren is to also support the alienating parent. And I've seen a lot of those situations. So the targeted parent now is really alone. They've lost the older generation and the younger generation. And it's really, I mean, they're all alone. And then you wonder why they're depressed and anxious.
They know something.
Who's the they? Who's the they?
Grandmother. They know something wrong.
Which one?
No, they believe that they're children. They love the children, and especially since his mother passed away, his father had. He let his children walk all over him because he did lots of life, and his mother was in there. He lets the kids walk all over him so he doesn't lose gas. Now, I believe everything is just trying to say because you love your children. Why does he have any reason to live in prison? Because it's a lie he tells him. I'm the bad one. I'm doing all this bad.
He doesn't. No,
it's his children. He could have had that whole thing. So it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
That's not really purpose for their children. And it's just the lies and the fear of losing death.
Okay, so let's move on now.
Okay. We're going to move on to the next question, which we kind of already, Linda discussed, but I'm going to read it because somebody had submitted it. What is the importance of the amicus brief for following through with court-ordered therapy that a parent is refusing to enforce with their child, stating they are not going to make the child go?
Basically, we're talking about the custodial parent has an obligation to be proactive. Parenting is not a passive function. It's not good enough to say, oh, I don't do anything to interfere with the relationship with the other parent and my child. That's what you hear. Well, no, parenting's proactive. Would a parent say, I don't do anything to encourage my child to to be truant. I can't help it if my child is truant. That's ridiculous. It's absurd. You have a responsibility as the custodial parent to encourage the relationship with the other parent. This is case law in most states. Is it followed? Most times not, unfortunately. But they do have a responsibility. Does anybody have any questions about this at all?
And I'm going to add something anyways. Michelle and I just learned in guardian ad litem class. I asked this question because I am so annoyed with this question. I asked, what do we do when a parent is refusing to take a kid to counseling? Irregardless of that we have no religious issues, there's no other barring factors. It's just a parent saying, well, I'm not forcing the kid. This is what Judge Monroe told us. Take it back to court. I didn't get a chance to ask her, well, what do you do if the parent doesn't have the money to afford to keep going back to court? Something that I was reading in our work says that if at any time that child was under state assistance, Medicaid, Medicare, anything that had to do with state assistance, you may qualify, that child may qualify for it being covered for legal payment. I don't know how you go about this. I'm just telling you what I happen to have read.
And you know what? Every courthouse has an excellent law library. And I've had targeted parents tell me they've gotten more accomplished by going pro se than when they had an attorney. They not only lost money by paying the attorneys didn't do what they wanted. So avail yourself of the law library. Make a stink and represent yourself if that's your only choice.
Here in Connecticut, 85% of family cases have closed that.
Oh, wow.
So don't be scared to submit your motion because chances are the other party's going to be so safe. So, and especially because it needs to get dragged out so long. So, you've got resources and help out there. Reach out to somebody that's sent through or ask questions. Every state courthouse here in Connecticut has 1 day a week where they have attorneys come for free. You can sit in front of them and get 15 minutes. Bring your most important questions to them. My husband did it. It was every Friday here in Waterbury once a month. They had a Friday dedicated to free questions of law. So, look into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's at the law library at Litchfield, and just ask what I'm looking for. I didn't even.
Yeah, they're usually very helpful.
And they were. And I said, I'm just looking for something that this idea. And she found the book, and then I could pinpoint it. What is this? And she found the book. They will help you.
Yeah.
And the clerks, they'll all help you.
Okay, we're going to read the next question.
Question 6. Tell us more concerning the amicus brief, I think we've answered this, related to the false belief that too much time has passed to enforce visitation and reunification therapy. How do we utilize this brief in a situation?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's absurd to say too much time has passed, my kid is too old. There's no statute of limitations on how long we love our child. We love our child until the day we die. So don't let anyone tell you, give up, it's too long. If this is something you want to pursue, you should pursue it.
Visitation and reunification.
And that's the other thing. You know, we talked about the lack of a child keeping a visit with you, and is that healthy or not? Again, when you think about it, in what situation, other than these situations, do we say it's okay that someone goes through their life with anger? It's okay. You could hate a parent. You know, you could be angry. I mean, you know, if a child is angry at school, they say either you get help and change or you're getting suspended. If they're angry with peers, you send them to therapy. And if they're angry in an intact family, I can't tell you how many parents come in and say, my child has an anger problem, we need anger management. How come it's okay when the parents are divorced that, oh, it's okay for a child to be angry at a parent? Why do we think that that's acceptable, that they can go through life being angry? And that should be posed to the guardian ad litem. You know, what do you think the resolution is with a parent? How do angry people usually behave? That's what I'd say to the guardian ad litem or the lawyer.
You know, angry kids, guess what they do? So, next question. Number 7. What recommendations do you have if the 16-year-old has been brainwashed to live with dad, and the courts allow the 16-year-old to live there, even if it's not in the best interest? This parent happened to go on further. Furthermore, the father does not foster visitation, hostily parents, and alienation has destroyed the 16-year-old relationship between mother and daughter. Father bribes the son with a car and lack of discipline to live with him for monetary gain. After 16 years, son has no contact with mother or brother and sister from another father, betrayed and heartbroken beyond words, which we all can understand.
I put up an amicus brief that PAS is child abuse, and this is child abuse. You cannot grow up healthy hating a parent. When a parent is eradicated from a child's life, there's a hole left. And guess what that hole is filled with? All the kids who didn't have a relationship, who I wrote about and who I've worked with and didn't get to write about, have filled that hole with terrible things. Drugs and alcohol, eating disorders, criminal activities, dropping out of school. Now when you think about it, you are teaching, the alienator is teaching the child to disrespect a parent. That disrespect of authority is going to get transferred to all adult relationships. They're going to be next disrespecting the teacher. And guess what eventually who they're going to be disrespecting as well? They're going to disrespect the alienator. Unfortunately, some reunification turns out to be, I can't handle him anymore, he's on your doorstep, deal with him. You know, 5, 10, 16 years later. So it's child abuse on many levels. The child is learning that love is hate. So how do they know what an intimate relationship really should be like? How are they going to form a healthy relationship with a partner if they've mixed up hate with love because they've been told your parents' love is really hate? The lies and the deception, you know, getting the kid to make up stories that that you sexually abuse them or that you hurt them in some way. Absolute lies. How does this is immoral behavior that's getting normalized. I've had, in my sessions, children have thrown coffee on their targeted parent, have kicked them in the groin, have destroyed their personal property. I mean, where else would they do this and get away with it? I've testified in court where someone said, what's so terrible about what this child is doing? Well, the child was beating up her mother. The mother came in with black and blue marks from the night before. So I testified. I said, if this child treated a teacher that way, they'd be expelled from school. If they treated the therapist this way, they'd be hospitalized psychiatrically. And if they treated any other adult this way, they'd be arrested. So how do we consider this healthy? And this is what you have to start documenting. I have articles on my website that it's child abuse. There is an amicus brief there that it's child abuse and why. So that could be downloaded and used to support any kind of petition.
I think, Linda, you've also said something that's very important about documenting.
Yeah.
We cannot...
You have to document.
We cannot stress this enough. Document, document, and document some more. Date, time, place, event, witnesses. Even the good things, because it shows that you're not being biased.
Good point.
It also shows a pattern of behavior. You can also then take this, put this into an Excel sheet. You could put this on a calendar. You can actually make a visual for the judge to see the pattern of behavior. And that is the point of the documenting. You can document chronologically, which is the main way you will document, but you can also document per incident, like visitations can all be lumped together that have been denied, or, you know, throwing of gifts or verbal abuse or whatever those categories are for you.
If it's not written, it didn't happen.
And the more you document at the time of the incident, the more likely they are to accept it because they feel it is more
contemporaneous. It has to be contemporaneous.
Thank you. Very important.
One thing I didn't talk about therapy. How is my therapy as a family therapist different than individual therapy? So I have the child and the alienated parent there. I tell alienated parents all the time, you have a right and a responsibility to correct any misinformation about yourself. Just don't put down the source of the information, because then it'll be misinterpreted. You're doing the same thing. You're engaging in alienation. Correct information about yourself, but do not blame anybody for, saying it. And you should stress for your child, I'm the only one who can tell you about me and who I am. So if you have a question about me, you come and ask me. Some of the tools that I use, I ask targeted parents to bring in photographs, videos, which I have equipment to play back in my office. Go down memory lane with your child. Remind them of how you were involved with them, because these children, their memories of you and what you did for them, it's erased overnight. Like they suddenly have amnesia. You never did a thing for them. You coached their game, but you never attended one of their games. So bring in, those are some of the things that I do in my session, and only you can do it. Only you can do it. And I have lots of boxes of tissues, because I can tell you that very often parent and child will burst into tears and collapse in each other's arms. And sometimes that is the most effective. You can't talk a child out of their beliefs when you're the stranger. You have to have that emotional connection as the parent to talk them out of it. That's the other thing. And some of that therapy has been very successful. And I had one very sad father who was alienated from his children since they were 2 and 3, and in and out of court. By the time they came to me, they were in their mid-teens, and still hadn't gotten redress. And he sat in the session and told them everything that he did to be involved with them, and they were crying, and they said they want to start visits immediately. And went home, and the mother called up, my child didn't mean that. There'll be no weekend visits. It was, the court really wasn't doing what they should have done. But those are some of the things that even you can do without the therapist. Just keep reminding your child of all the wonderful memories you had together.
One of the things that we also recommend sometimes in my support groups online is make a memory book. If you happen to have, those kids happen to sometimes come to your house for visitation, but those that do get it, have that book on the table. They might pick it up and open it, and if you put captions under it and stuff, they might start to remember some of those positive memories. Or they might say to you, I don't remember this. And then you could say, oh, that was the day that and all of a sudden you're helping to recharge those old memories.
If you're lucky enough to have pictures, you keep that around. A lot of targeted parents, they're put out of the house on a spurious domestic violence charge, and they just leave with the clothes on their back and don't even get pictures. It's very, very sad. But if you have those pictures, keep them all around. Sometimes you can even get them on Facebook, and it's really very sad. You get the bill for the school yearbook, and you're not allowed pictures. I mean, and they don't, and the custodial parent doesn't give you the pictures. I mean, it's
oh no, you can get the pictures. We got the pictures every year for my husband's kids.
How did you do that?
It's all online.
It's online.
Now it is.
No. And let me tell you, you can get those past pictures. How many storms have we been through here in Connecticut, people? Hello. Listen, we got flooded. All our pictures were in the basement. Is there a possibility that we could possibly, get the school pictures? These are part of our family albums. At least we get them. We'll get the pictures.
I'll share something that I'm hoping that might help you. I created a movie by sharing music. All various pictures of
Great idea.
My name for that Monday as a church visit. video, blogs or whatever.
That's a great idea. That's really a
That's one of the things, yes. We also recommend blogs and having your name out there. These kids will look for you. They will Google you because they start to get curious, especially when they start to have their own family. And their kids say, well, where's your mommy and daddy?
But believe me, kids are curious, even if they're hiding it from their residential parent, or they're looking. They are looking.
Okay, so question number 8. I'm interested in hearing about older teens, particularly 17 and 19, and what or how to handle them in a past situation.
Unfortunately, that's a very difficult situation. Try telling a teenager anything, even when you have a good relationship with them. So that is a difficult situation. All I can suggest is keep reaching out, keep sending them, birthday cards, well wishes, contacting them through Facebook. I mean, anything, contacting their friends. Just let them know you're there. Amy Baker, do everybody know who she is? Okay. In her book, she said that one of the things she discovered when she interviewed adult child survivors of PAS. And one of the things they complained about was, my alienated parent gave up on me. He or she stopped trying to contact me. Some did, because, after a while you draw a line, and how many times are you going to get arrested for trying to contact your kid? And they took an order of protection out against you, so you wish them happy birthday, and then the police reach you. I have a case like that right now. It's really awful. He was harassing me. How did he harass me? He wished me a happy birthday. But you know what? When they get an order of protection, however frivolous it is, you're not allowed to send a birthday wish. I would just keep contacting and making efforts. You just never know. Don't give up. But it is in general, it's impossible to get through with teens, and PAS makes it even worse. That's very unfortunate. That's why I keep telling everybody, time is of the essence with these cases. They should not drag on for years. And one of the recommendations in my book is, whenever there's a case where visits are not going on, the judges need to make them a priority, just like when you do a Child Protective Service removal. That's a priority. You have to have an immediate hearing, I don't know, within 48 hours or something like that, to justify it. Well, the other parent, the alienating parent, has removed that child from you. It's a removal. It should get a priority. So far, I haven't gotten no judge has been knocking down my door to see if I'm willing to, it's unfortunate.
72 hours.
Yep, okay. I knew it was something like that.
Oh, the recording must have gotten turned off at some point.
Parents whose kids were removed by Child Protective Services have more rights than you do. Your rights are scrupulously protected if your child was removed and placed in foster care. The federal government mandates weekly visits. They mandate that you be kept apprised of all medical, educational, and social activities. And in fact, I used to be an assistant director of foster care and adoption for Nassau County, New York. I could sign for an operation, but before I did, I would have to have my staff try to go out and locate the parents and get them to sign. Those diligent efforts had to be made. So because the other parent is the one denying you the relationship, it's okay? It makes no sense.
That is a sibling too. When a child is placed in foster care, they have to be taken to see their sibling
right.
as well as the parent.
That's another point. Yep.
But not in a divorce situation.
Right. Yep.
Question 9. I'm also wondering if there has been any link or info on the spouse putting a wedge between the family of the other spouse even before the children. Also putting that wedge between a mother and a daughter relationship.
I think what they were asking is, when does alienation begin? It doesn't have to begin the day you separate or file for divorce. I have seen many cases where many alienated parents have said to me, I saw this coming years ago. My child and my wife, or my child and my husband, they were like this. They were keeping secrets from me. They were making plans behind my back. I didn't find out that my child, I don't know, had a doctor's appointment or failed a test or whatever. This is really, we don't call it alienation, but it's unhealthy family functioning. Anytime a child and a parent has a secret from the other parent, it's a form of humiliating and denigrating and excluding that other parent. And the red flag should go up that if you ever get divorced, it's going to get worse. This pattern should be nipped in the bud. And I can't tell you how many alienated parents said to me, I just didn't want to start a fight in front of the kids. The battle was too strong. The conflict was unhealthy for my children. Well, yes, and that's how you wound up in a one-down position. I'll bet every single one of you in this room gave in to your spouse, even while you were still together. They ruled the roost. They wore the pants in the family, right? You were the nice ones.
Especially in the beginning of your relationship. It was when you guys put your foot down and said, I'm not doing this anymore. What the? That's when everything started to flip roll and the relationship started to go bad.
So, yeah. So this is a very unhealthy family dynamic, and I see it all the time. This is the key problem that even intact families come into my office because of triangulation. There is a violation of boundaries between the generations, and there is a strain between the boundaries between the couple. And they don't all result in alienation. But at the same time, nobody comes into my office and says, you know, we have a problem in our family that there's an unhealthy cross-generational relationship between my son and my wife to my exclusion. They don't know they're doing it. They don't know. You know, there were, let's be a little humorous here to explain how common this is and why it's ridiculous to say it doesn't exist. I think it was Sears who made two humorous commercials really based on triangulation. In the first one, a teenage girl is in the kitchen with her father and looks at the refrigerator and goes, ugh, does this stink? And the father, looking at his daughter ingratiatingly, says, you think? It's really? And she said, yeah. She leaves the kitchen, passes her mother on the sofa, and collects a $20 bill for having lobbied with Dad to get the new refrigerator. That's triangulation. It really is. In the second, and that's how common it is. And how many times have we said, Johnny, didn't I tell your father this last week? Well, you know, it's perfectly innocent, but you're putting your child in the middle. In the second commercial, the mother is in the living room looking with her latency age son, and she's looking down at her floors very dejectedly. And the little boy, very attuned to mom, because that kids are attuned to parents, looks up and says, anyone remember these commercials? I'm dating myself. Okay. Looks up and says to his mother, what's wrong, Mom? And his mom says, I want new floors, but your father won't let me get any. So the boy runs to the steps. Yeah, this rings a bell. We all do this, right? You've heard a slip of the tongue? You've heard that expression? Well, I don't believe in talking therapy. I believe in action therapy, so I refer to this in my book as a slip of behavior. But in any case, so the boy runs to the steps and screams up the steps, hey, Dad, Mom wants new floors. In the next scene, Mom is in the living room, and she's delighted looking down at her floors, and she's alone. And then she hears a voice from upstairs that says, hey, Mom, Dad wants a new motorcycle. And she looks up saying, what have I wrought? You know, this is how common this is. It's unhealthy. Like I said in my book, Reader, don't get distraught. One slip of behavior is not going to create a psychotic child, because that's where these kids wind up when it's really pervasive, and that's the pattern, and the coalition is rigid, and it's really to demean the other parent. But it's unhealthy. You need to fight your battles with your spouse directly and not involve the kids. Think of it yourself. How did you feel if your parents got into a fight, number one? And how did you feel if one of them asked you to side with them against the other one? Who liked it? Okay. So how did you like it?
Well, the difference is my mom, she still to this day blames Dad. And
that's a form of alienation, I want you to know, because it's a pattern.
through all this, I learned a lot about my mom and putting these labels that it's helped me with her too. But growing up though, even though she would put me in the middle, I feel like never do it. I never got sucked in, but it's just so funny that it's such a typical thing. Even at 2 small screens, it's down how the kids or it's in the home work. I probably in every family to some point.
If you're not an educated family therapist.
No, but even if you're an educated family therapist, children know how to manipulate too, trust me.
Right.
We know that the kid will go downstairs and go, hey, Dad, can I have Joe Schmo over? Knowing full well that Mom has already will say no. And then Joe Schmo, and then she'll go upstairs and say, oh, well, Dad said it was okay.
But the adults have to know not to be manipulated. And if you have a sound marriage, you don't allow it. It's when you don't have a sound marriage, and this'll make him angry, this'll tick him off, you know. So I let her go out with a mini skirt, and I know he hates it, but think of your kid. Well, what is her reputation going to be? So what's the next question?
We're moving on to the last question in the series, and then we'll take questions as well. Ooh, that was me hitting something?
No, that was the water.
Oh, okay. What are the big do's and don'ts to deal with a 17 and 19-year-old that are ostracized mom while Dad gave them everything? We kind of basically have gone over some of these. These are people that wrote in questions. Basically, do you want me to read what you...
No, I can say it.
Okay.
Look, again, getting a divorce is a sign we go to war, all right? And we want allies in a war, so we want our children. And we don't want them to like the other parent more than they like us. So we become their friend instead of a parent. And okay, so you can stay out an hour late. All right, so you can skip one homework. And okay, you missed school tomorrow, you had a test. I'll write a note. We want our kid to favor us. I don't think it starts out planned, but if you're thinking straight, and most of us don't think straight, and I'm divorced too, and I have to say that it was one of the most amicable divorces possible. Two social workers are generally going to think of their kid first, and I think we did. But, emotions get high. And it takes a strong person to say, I'm going to put my needs and wishes aside, and I'm going to put my anger towards my former partner who helped me make this kid and who I one time loved. I'm going to put those feelings aside for the benefit of my kids. It's very hard to do, but you need to do it.
Okay, so at this point we're going to take some questions and from the audience. There's going to be some questions on the chat, Linda, that I'll have to read to you.
Sure.
One of those questions had been, and I'm going to stand back for a second. Oh, I know, because I have this in my support groups. We have many parents where the kids are suicidal, and they kind of don't know, what do we do? Do we get them into an institution? Is there places for these kids to go? Do we have to institutionalize them? I've got one parent on our support group, the kid finally got up the guts to leave his father, and he's cutting, and he is just traumatized, and he's flunking out of school, and the school is ready to kick him out, and at this point, the school really has to kind of put the brakes on what they're going to do. It's the child's mental health. So, Linda, What do we do with these kids? They're suicidal. They're cutting. They're, you know...
well, you know, what are the two circumstances that kids get their parents to unite? One, the psychiatrist calls them into the psychiatric hospital, or else the prison guard calls them up and says, your kid needs to be bailed out, or you get a lawyer. This is a way, you know, these are the extremes that kids go to get their parents to unite and stop fighting each other. And it's very little too late. But this is another reason why I consider PAS child abuse. I mean, when I think symbolically, if a child is cutting themselves, well, you know, what is the cutting symbolic of? I think cutting the parental relationship or cutting the other parent into pieces. So the kid is doing things that symbolize the dysfunction between the parents, and it always happens that way. And that's another reason I don't believe in individual therapy. I have a new feature on my website, which I've started to put together, about the fallacy of mental health diagnoses. To me, it's related to parental alienation in two ways. The effects on the targeted parent, where you become anxious and depressed, and some have a nervous breakdown, and once the judge hears that, they think, oh, you know, no good, you can't parent. Well, it's not, you're not that way. You had mentioned that you would cut yourself. Okay. There is a father mentioned in my book. He did the same thing. His wife was as narcissistic as can be, disempowering him, cutting off his balls symbolically, wouldn't let him pick up his child, wouldn't let him bring their child to his extended family, kept secrets from him, whatever, totally emasculated him. And he was in the kitchen, and he took a knife to his stomach, okay? Okay? His son was there. His son never remembered it. He was 7 years old at the time. And everybody made a big deal. What a horrible thing he did. And I'm thinking to myself, on the witness stand, how am I going to explain this? I'm thinking to myself, I didn't testify this. I said, you know, when you're dealing with a narcissist, he deserves a medal for not taking the knife to heart. Okay, you see, we're all in the same boat here. I said, you know, he gave her a 69-gun salute. He didn't do anything to her.
We used to laugh and say the same thing in the support groups. We used to say, oh, you know, my husband's act is the Wicked Witch of the West, WWW, and we want to string her up by her toes and pour honey on her and stick her out in the woods somewhere for the bears to get her. You know, I mean, you have these visions of how can I get this person to feel the pain and suffering that I'm feeling?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm really sorry. What do you do when it all does get too much and there is an incident? And maybe it is a neglectful incident and the children are home, but it's not meant towards the child, and then all of a sudden the DCF gets involved, and you're said to neglected your child just one time.
Worse than that, you know, they crucified this father, and the therapist who knew nothing about alienation says in front of his 7-year-old
I'm going to stop it for a minute. Jim, I'm just stopping for a second. Linda, do me a favor. When somebody asks a question, we're going to have to repeat the questions because people here can't hear what you guys are saying. So repeat her question, and that way they're hearing your response and understanding the response.
So the targeted parent becomes overwhelmed. Okay, they're emasculated, they're driven out of their child's lives, they've had allegations of abuse that are false, and it gets too much. And very often they might have a nervous breakdown, they may get diagnosed with depression or anxiety. Very important, you have to make the case that this is situational. You had no history of this prior to meeting and marrying this narcissistic partner you're with, you know. So you have to make sure, and the problem is that most therapists will see things as a biochemical disorder, not situational. Arm yourself with information, do reading. Joni started putting up on the website information about the fallacy of mental health diagnoses. There's a lot of information out there. I will be preparing an amicus brief probably after the new year documenting the fallacy of mental health diagnoses. One blog, what are they called? No, they're speaking things, podcasts. One of the podcasts up there, a father had sent me, it was at the 2006 Psychiatric Convention, and they interviewed about 15 psychiatrists, and they said, oh, we don't have any proof for mental health disorder. There are no tests for it. We can't prove anything. No, we can't establish biochemical disorder. No, we don't know this. You know, they virtually said it's a fraud. So you have to start documenting, and you're trailblazing in this area. I agree. Dr. Mnuchin has been making this case for 60 years and hasn't gotten anywhere, but maybe everyone else, if you get enough people, start making waves. Get this documentation. Just quickly, there is something called the CAPA score, K-A-P-P-A. And it's on my website. It's called the CAPA score. That's how they determine if a diagnosis is going to be admitted into the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. Okay, a perfect score is 1. So if 10 clinicians examined a person and they all came up with the same symptoms, that would be a 1. So anything between 0.08 and 1 is obviously exceptional. 0.6 to 0.08 is considered very good or excellent. 0.04 to 06 is acceptable. 0.02 to 04 is considered could be accepted, okay? And anything below 02 is not acceptable. Now, what does that mean? It means 2 out of 10 clinicians have to diagnose you, and only 2 have to agree to reach the condition of could be accepted. Would anyone have an operation if the doctor said, well, you know what, it could be, yeah, you could have this, you know, but we recommend this surgery, but you could have. Okay, so that's bad enough. What do you think the CAPA score is of depression? It's 0.03. Anxiety is 0.02. Could be accepted. And yet all of you have the lawyers saying, he's depressed, he's not an unfit parent, she's anxious, shouldn't be near the kids, on a diagnosis that says could be accepted. So go print my article on it quotes some other people. You should know this. Don't let anyone say you're emotionally disturbed. You're not. You're situationally made crazy by someone crazier than you, a narcissist. And actually, narcissists are not curable. They're an Axis 2 diagnosis. They can't be cured.
It's amazing typical diagnosis for alienating parents.
Yeah, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorders, antisocial personality. It's an Axis 2 diagnosis. You'll find your common terrorist or pedophile on there too. I mean, it may be further along the continuum, but they're not amenable to treatment. Depression and anxiety are. So, I mean, even there, you have the advantage. But I wouldn't even allow someone to say you're depressed. I had no history before I married this nut. Yeah.
Thank you. That was really impressive. No, I do feel like the work had to happen because our lives had started to go separate ways, and it really wasn't a full parenting plan that I.
Right. Of course not. It was her co-parenting plan.
So the wall I'm running into now is the therapist. They've been in therapy for a year and a half.
You should get in touch with David Holm. Are you on Facebook?
Okay, Daniel Holmes, DanielHolems. And isn't Cindy Smith connected with the Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania.
Yes. Are you in touch with them? Are you friends with them?
No.
Get in touch with them. They're a support group. So they may be able to tell you things about Pennsylvania also. But
the MTA in Pennsylvania, Parental Alienation Awareness, Pennsylvania.
The problem I'm having is it's been a year and a half.
Yeah, and by the way, who gave them permission to move out of state?
I agreed to it because everything kind of happened at once.
Yeah.
And she had the schools lined up, she had a job lined up.
Never trust an alienator.
Yeah. And
they will.
I really was down on myself, but I trusted that she would follow through with this.
Yeah, of course you did.
And
I know.
I see my kids, I've had 3 visits since August 2007. Now, since they've gone into therapy, my relationship is just...
Yep, because you're an individual therapist, I know.
Seen me interact with my children.
Right.
She doesn't know what I look like.
He asked come and meet her.
I've been willing to go there.
It's disgusting, yeah, I know, it's disgusting. That's why I say your kid is better in no therapy than in therapy with an individual therapist.
And I keep thinking with her, why is the mom still in the room? She's got one thing on her. And in every session, and I'm on speaker.
Yeah, oh, that's terrible.
And this is the wall up again. And I discontinued the therapy because, and the GA, I'll get back earlier, their recommendation of stipend, which never happened. It got to a point where we were going to start stipend. My daughter said, I don't want to see.
Right.
And at that point, I said, this is too painful for me right now. I love you. I know this is painful for you, but I don't want to put you through something that you don't want to go through. So at that point, I closed the therapy session for fall, and I discontinued the agreement that we had before with GAL agreement to do this because I knew I was being set up to go out there and it was up to the therapist at the 4 visits if she agreed or not. But my daughter never got to the point where she was supposed to stifle me to see my face, and it became really painful for me.
Right.
So I put an end to it.
I hate therapists who play God.
I felt bad doing it because I didn't want to, and I said to myself, you know, I'm okay. I'm with somebody, and you know I have kids around me, and I love you, and if we could write to each other or whatever, and things are good. The things weren't as good as the last time I saw them.
Right, of course not.
Normal. But now that all the time has gone by, the last conversation I had with them is they hate you.
They don't hate you. They say they hate you.
And it's like, now what do? The communication will stop. I'm starting a whole new work process. I'm doing it on my own.
That's the only thing you can do. And Daniel may be able to help you with that too.
Yeah.
But the only thing at this point may be legal remedy. That's the only thing that's going to bring pressure on her, unfortunately. They do not self-reform.
Just put back on my son had surgery, I
I
had no idea.
know.
That's awful. That's like the worst thing you could do. Could have died.
Yep. And how old are your kids again?
I don't know.
You ought to do it now, before they become teenagers.
Yeah, I'm going back into the court process.
Yeah. Do you have to? And you have to go to Pennsylvania?
Not at this point.
Yeah, from here to Connecticut.
Because in the divorce decree, it said all future activities will be handled by Connecticut.
Well, good. That's good. That's good. So you have to lean on her.
Right.
And here in Connecticut, they are getting better. Unfortunately, you got screwed, my husband got screwed, many of us whose cases are very, very old. But they are getting a little bit better in that they are deliberately training the guardian ad litem, the attorneys for the minor child, and the judges. Does that mean we don't have jerks out there still? We won't go there. We know they're out there. But they are trying to change, and they are trying to train them. And they are not only doing this initial certification class, but they will be doing additional CEU-type classes that all these GALs, AMCs, and judges are going to have to take. I want to move on because I got some questions on the chat that we need to get to as well. Is there a test for the narcissistic personality disorder?
Yeah, there is a test, but you'll never get them to take it. Yeah. You know, one of the things I just put up there, sometimes in a custody of, and I don't know how to tell you, you know what, my answer is lie. I just put something up under mental health. They do give tests, and every one of the alienating parents I've worked with all came up to have traits of narcissistic personality disorders. You know where they got the targeted parents? Because you were honest. You answered the question honestly. I have to say this I can't say this with a straight face. It's so ridiculous. You answered the question honestly. I think that there are people out there to get me.
And then so they decided you're paranoid.
And, you know, by the time you take the test, you've been through the law guardian who thinks you're an abuser. You've had a CPS investigation. Your ex has made all kinds of allegations. Your lawyer doesn't know what to believe if you're telling the truth. And you don't think that anyone's out there to get you. So you answer that question honestly. Bingo, paranoid personality disorder. And you know what? Who's better, a narcissist or a paranoid? Who do you think?
And the reality is, well, of course you'd be paranoid.
So, I mean, you know, even a paranoid person has enemies. And, you know, don't answer that question honestly. And be consistent throughout. Everybody loves you, even your ex.
Okay, someone on the chat here says, make them take the test before you marry them. Survival of the fittest. Unfortunately, I've asked to see if there's any more questions. One woman also asked if we knew if there were any therapists in Ohio. People, we try to list as many therapists and counselors and attorneys that we get referrals on who are good on past intervention.
But again, if you don't know anybody, try to get the family therapist. I can't guarantee that all of them will know this stuff, but at least they've heard the word triangulation in Family Therapy 101. At least they know a child belongs to a family that triangulates.
They've also heard the word enmeshment, and they also know what borders and boundaries are. These are all the family therapist training words. The other thing is, on past intervention, when you get to these pages for the attorneys and for the counselors, where we list them, one of the biggest things I say is, do not be afraid to ask the question. Do you know what parental alienation is? Do you know what hostile aggressive parenting is? Do you know how have you handled it? What did you do? Can you tell me about some of your cases? Do not be afraid to ask this. You're hiring this person. You are paying them.
And if they say to you there's no such thing as a syndrome, you're saying, I'm not saying it's a syndrome, I'm saying it's a family dynamic.
No. And you can also say, thank you very much.
Observable, that it's observable.
Right. But you can also go, thank you very much, and hang up the phone and dial the next number. Because I don't want you wasting time arguing with somebody over whether it's a syndrome or not.
Yeah.
It's really not worth the time.
And don't assume that the GAL or the AMC knows a good person. They're going to recommend whoever they hear about in all these trainings, which might not be the best person just because they're reputable. Yep, they might not be. That definitely happened to us, and I'll tell you, we thought he was going to be the best. GAL recommended him. He was in the GAL training. By the time we were done with him, we're like, what did he do for us? Nothing. So,
I'm going to repeat it to the people in the chat because I'm not sure if they can hear the show. We are talking about that just because there's the GAL or the AMC is recommended doesn't mean they're any good. Doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. They're being recommended because it's part of the good old boys network, because they met in class or something. It's not always the case.
Find your own and give a list and say, I recommend one of these 5 people, or choose somebody else, but you have to have these letters.
This is one of the things that I will also recommend to people. Often the course will say to you, you've got to come up with a therapist. So you go home and you go through your medical insurance, and you know that the ex isn't going to agree with what you choose. So find 5 therapists that you like. You can tell the GAL, well, I think this one's the better one, but here's a list of 5. The GAL, if it's the GAL making the decision, then the GAL will decide. But if it's the ex, then the ex can choose between the 5, and they can't say, well, you may, if they favored you or biased on you. You've given them a list of 5 people.
And the other thing you should know, this is a covered insurance expense. You shouldn't have to, if the therapist takes the insurance, then they have to bill it under the insurance. A lot of them will try to get cash because the insurance companies pay maybe 1/3 of what people are charging in private practice, and it's really a shame. They're really taking you to the cleaners every way you turn.
The forensic evaluator is not.
No, the forensic is not.
Forensic is not. Evaluations, for whatever bloody reason, are not covered. I do not know why. Isn't there one other thing that's not covered?
An evaluation for what's happening in the family is covered.
Evaluations of that, but not a psych eval. Psych evals are not covered, not sure why.
It's not therapy, but okay.
And that's probably why. Yeah. Now, we're running down on time. It's 20 off. We do have to close up some of the stuff. Does anybody have some more questions for Linda? And I think we're going to shut down the computers as we're doing this so that we can be out of here on time. And Linda, people online, we are going to start shutting down because we have to be out of here in 5 minutes.
You know what? If anyone has any questions, email me at lmft@verizon.net. So please use my website, which is free, endparentalienation.com. Oh, and it's up on the board. Thank you, Joni.
I'm going to shut. This is you.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have not and no idea what possibly many which might I have no idea if it's getting there.
Wow. You're not stopped legally. She's just stopped. Yeah.
I don't know if there's any way I can ever.
I don't know if Joni has any suggestions about what to do legally. Joni much more involved with that. That's really a shame. Do you know where he's living even?
Yeah, I know probably that, yeah.
Do you know friends of his? Yeah. That's terrible. What does she have him on home instruction? I mean, yeah.
They said he's out.
Oh gosh.
That was their answer.
That's real bad enmeshment. I don't know, maybe Joni or Michelle about what legal options may be.
Right. And even another situation, I want to tell you, on Thanksgiving, we called my mother to wish her a happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, right. I'm going to stop and a week later, he called her back, and he wanted to know if the car got lost in the mail with the check in it. Really? Yeah. This one called your mom, right? Yep. And I had to go mail the card with the check in it. Because I could not do it. She wanted it done.
Unbelievable.
Oh.
I would have done.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm in New York. Yeah, yeah. And it was also a bit. I got you out of this. It's very strange what happens. You don't mind me asking? No, I don't mind. I figured someone was going to ask anyway. My mother was very narcissistic, and I figured out what she was. My parents had not saved for my education. My father was never good at handling money. Anyway, we were living in New Jersey when my parents separated. He moved back to New York, where we came from. And at that time, City College was free. It was the only way I could go to college if I moved in with my father. So I went to him actually hating him. Wow. But the worst part was I went because it was better than living with my father. So I was looking forward to it. So it was getting away from the alienated parent. Yeah. It was, and then he just showed what a loving parent he was, and he won me over like overnight. So that's what happened. So, what's your story? Come on. How many children do you have?
I have two. They're 21 and 24. My daughter has come around, and we're like this.
Oh, and that's wonderful.
My son still won't talk to me.
And she has no influence over him?
I'm sorry?
Your daughter has no influence over her brother?
No. No, and it's affected their relationship as well, unfortunately. So, but I think that's coming around too. But I did want to ask you, because now I know what I'm going to get my son for Christmas. I'm going to make him a memory book. Is there any way that can backfire on me?
Well, I don't think
pictures of him and I together.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think you should do that. Nothing he won't get angry at or be.
What do you have to lose?
I don't know.
How worse could you get?
I don't know.
Do you have any contact with him at all?
Yep, I go and I see him at work every month or two, or, every couple of months. I'll stop by for like 5 minutes. I don't want to overdo it.
I don't see any problem with that. No. I don't see any problem with giving him a memory book.
Okay. Where it's just like, like some pictures of when him and I together.
I would tell a story about them.
Okay, I will. I'll
write
some
something
couches
up.
and things. All right, great.
You should also make a video.
And I'll do some pictures of him and sister too.
Make a video.
Do it like a DVD.
Yeah. I have a article on my website. I think it's called "The Sacrifice of the Alienated Parent." And these are the situations where you really think going to die and your child is not going to know the truth. And I told how to make a video about what really happened.
Okay.
And all kinds of questions on there. But I don't think that's appropriate for your situation now. I like that idea of the memory book.
Okay.
But elaborate on it. Write an explanation of all of this.
Okay. I don't want to overwhelm him too much. I've been giving him like bits and pieces along the way, and I don't want to overwhelm him.
What kind of relationship do you have?
I don't know. I mean, I think his dad spends a lot of time at the girlfriend's house. So.
Is he there with his father?
He was at his dad's house, yeah.
And where did your daughter live?
She's on her own with her boyfriend. She's going for her graduate degree. Hopefully she's getting in. So.
What's she going in?
Physical therapy. It's now a doctorate program now. Yeah. I'm going to ask you something else.
I'd like to hear the results, so let's send the message along.
Okay? Yeah.
Maybe she should write like
Thank you.
So if you don't have to have Facebook,
we have some Facebook. We have no contact, texting, no email. No, I have to talk to you, but I don't know where it goes.
Oh, thank you very much.
I am a retired foster parent.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, but
Okay. Oh, wow.
They're supposed to.
No,
really bothered me.
And you know what I tell parents, you know what I tell judges and lawyers all the time, lawyers for the child?
Maybe she can.
I never, thousands of the kids I work with, when did you ever have one say, I hate my parents,
I have
never
4 adopted children. I could have done the same thing. I could have.
Right,
I
that is an area that's.
I would never.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like that, right, I bet they said they never hated their parents, never, no matter what they did, that's right.
And that's why I call
And
it
they
all
were
the time.
protective of them.
I just can't fathom it. When I heard these kids on the phone the other night yelling, I hate you, I knew more that they said they did.
My book
I got it, I already ordered it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sad, and if those kids were foster kids, they would not be happy.
Exactly.
They would have to do this. They would have to.
Exactly.
My last adopted daughter, her mom was in prison. She had to go through
Yep,
that.
yep.
I said, then you would have been better off in prison.
Yep.
You could see your kids. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It boggles my mind. So long
Seems like a
Kate.
very nice guy, and a very nice, devoted father. Yeah, that's a shame.
Sorry guys, I just want to shut this, and we never, for somehow the recording got shut off. I don't know how.
Which recording?
This one on here.
Oh, God.
You must, I think maybe you accidentally hit it, I'm not sure what.
You don't have it on either computer?
No, it's partly on that computer.
And then the video broke down too?
The video ran out of memory, it ran out of battery, so we'll have to piecemeal things together. I mean, it was an experiment to see if we can do it.
Oh, I meant to bring my camera.
But I think I like the idea of doing this with one of the computers plugged in.
Back again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that it would be great having you come every so often.
I will come back again.
And people have more and more questions. Like, you know, Linda, who just came up and talked, just, you know, she's slowly making progress, but it's been perseverance for her.
No, I'll come back again.
Sure. You know, you remind me of, you know, my problem is all the comedians over like that. I'm the kind of person, I'm a comedy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sort of like, you know, in dealing with a narcissist, I think it's sort of just like this almost, it's like almost such a divide. And, you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, Jack Benny lives in me. All these comedians live in me, and it's hard for me to be, you know,
What is this?
This is the therapist, which I've never met. Okay. And you tell me if I don't know what to do, I don't respond. And one of the things I've always done, and I probably was like when I grew up, always try to do.
You email me?
I always try. I've never done anything where I mean I always take it on myself to be like stabbing guy in the back, not physically, but I'm taking it on myself.
How old is your daughter? You want me to know what I think of this?
Well, I just thought, I don't respond to it because I never, and then in other words, any response I've done is always been, I always take I'm going to say the Christian attitude. Okay?
Why don't you, since we have to get out of here, why don't you email me with your email, and I'll read this over and give you some feedback.
Oh, that would be great.
Can I have a copy? Oh, okay.
I have a cousin who's a psychiatrist, 90 years old. Oh, and you know that I have psychiatrists back then probably had no knowledge of any of this stuff. This is sort of like a brand new field. It should be on the well. It should show up on, it should show up somewhere. When you were ringing so many bells, like ding, 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 I was like, there's a million questions.
I'm going to come back again.
Oh, but
Yeah, I'm in New York.
Yeah, where's that?
You'll take like 2 hours.
No, but I mean, I'm in New York. I'm
to say.
I'm on something.
Okay.
Just right over to that house.
Oh, okay. I mean, my sister was today. I'm shopping. Here's one last question. For the holiday, I told Michelle, my everybody years and years ago. I moved everybody. I mean, rich, poor. I got rid of all that years ago. I understand what I'm saying, but you always try to exactly like the next person. Where they were. And what anybody else said about it, forget the prejudice. People evaluate so, a lot of prejudice in the thing.
You're going to be,
family.
when you get in there, you're going to go, oh my God, I didn't know there was such a thing, but there were so many nice people out there.